Art Dealer Podcast, new episode with Margarita Monet. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. It's nice to finally see you. We've been
Mhm.
talking on and off. I checked my emails since 2014, so a little
Wow.
while. It's like 10 years later, we finally meet.
Yeah? Wow. Time flies, that's for sure.
Yeah, that is for sure. Singer, songwriter, pianist, visual artist, and obviously frontwoman of Edge of Paradise. Let's talk about all your stuff, but I wanted to first ask, your last name. Did you get that from the painter?
Well, so my original actual last name is Marderosian. Um, so Monet, I don't even know. There's some from my grandmother's side, um, there, but I don't know. Sometimes it was like my middle name, so it was floating around, and I just adopted it when because it was too long to pronounce Marderosian, so I started saying Margarita Monet.
I thought maybe it was because you were so into the arts and you grew up around arts, especially some of the
Mhm.
classical stuff that you were like, that's the name. I'm going to go with Monet.
Um, yeah, I started making art after I already had the name because I always loved art, but then I don't know, it kind of clicked, maybe subconsciously. So.
Fair. So you're born in 1990 in Armenia. And from what I understand, you very, very young, like at the age of 4, was it? You started to play piano and get introduced into the arts in general. Um, was your family very artistic? Was it something they forced on you? How did it start?
No, my family never forced anything on me, which is interesting now looking back. I always had that. I think I dragged them a lot of the times. But my family moved to Moscow when I was very young. I think I was turning 3. Um, because when I was born, Soviet Union fell apart, and most of my family is actually into science, and yeah, most of them are like mathematicians and scientists. My mom is more creative type, so she is actually a historian. But when we moved to Moscow, my mom started working at an arts academy there, and she had to take me to work because there was nobody to watch me. So when she was working, I just took all the classes, like from theater to ballet to music. I was just there all day long. So really started to fall in love with the arts, and I think ever since then, eventually when I turned 4, I started going to like a private piano lessons, because I think in that academy it was more like choir. Um, so I started taking piano lessons, and then I started going to like an actual ballet school. And in Moscow, on every corner of the street, there's like a theater or a museum. So my mom would always take me to see shows, and I just fell in love with it. And I always wanted to be involved in something to do with the arts.
Yeah, that's super cool. So it was almost like immersion by accident where your mom had the job and she had to take
Hmm.
you to work and all of a sudden, boom, you're surrounded by so many different
Hmm.
artistic influences. Was there like one in particular that you naturally gravitated towards? You mentioned ballet and piano and music, and I know that you also paint. Was there one that you said this is for me, or was it just a combination of everything?
So my mom actually paints a lot. She's a really amazing painter. She has her own style. So she always I painted with her growing up, and I really loved it, but I never really gravitated towards that. I was always between piano and ballet. Like that was my main things. And I don't think to this day like I knew which really I wanted to pick, because I was kind of forced to choose eventually. And then also when we moved to the States, my life completely changed. But, in Russia, it's a little bit different because when you're little, um, like you have to kind of pick what you want to do. at a younger age. So I remember, my teachers and everybody involved would always be like, well, what is she going to pick? Is she going to pick dance or music or theater? Or what is it going to be? Because then you have to like really immerse yourself
Mhm.
into whatever you're doing because it's pretty competitive. Um, Plus it takes a lot of time. Like when you go to music school there, you got to take choir, theory, there's exams, there's performances. So it's like a full-time thing. And same thing with ballet. I would go every day for like, 4 or 5 hours at a time, plus rehearsals if there was a show. So I had like a full schedule and I really loved it. So I don't think I picked anything consciously. I think my life kind of steered me into directions and I followed. Um, but I can tell you that I never imagined being in a rock band. So that was at the bottom of my list for sure. I just never even thought it would be possible.
Yeah. So you were more classically trained, right? Like classical training, classical music.
Yes, totally different world.
When I was gonna say, when did you discover rock? But I guess first and foremost, I should say, what was the thing that you decided to focus on? So if school's saying you have to pick something, what was your choice?
Well, I eventually went into theater because when we moved to Houston, I was doing debate, and then in debate I picked like dramatic monologue, and we actually won nationals with it. I got third place and dramatic monologue. And then I went to performing arts high school
Mhm.
and I was in theater there. And eventually I wanted to musical theater because I do like singing, but I was kicked out of it because they thought I wasn't good. Because I was more on the shy side and I never really had a teacher that tried to pull out something that they saw in me, or maybe they didn't see anything in me. I don't know, but no one like pushed me. That's one thing I find different between like schools in Russia and schools here is that over there, like teachers, they like really, they see something and they make you um, do like 1,000% until they get it out of you. Here, it's really left up to you. If you're on the shy side, it's gonna be a little bit harder because you really have to be the one pushing yourself, the one
Mm,
taking risks. And I wasn't there until I was, a lot older that I realized, everything is really up to me.
yeah.
So,
So
um,
so it's like, more self-starter done, self-imposed here versus over there,
mhm.
you have a lot of coaching, a lot of, like, push behind you to do it. This is fascinating because 'cause you're now, the lead singer of a rock band, you're doing so much with art, you're the front of the band, and you're out there, and you're doing interviews. How did you overcome the shyness? Like, what was it that finally got you out of that and said, "I'm gonna be the front woman"?
So I think it's a different kind of shyness. Like I always loved performing, like I loved being in theater. I wasn't shy in that regard. I think I had like these mental blocks maybe um that I I knew inside I could do something, but I was too afraid to try, maybe afraid of failure. And especially when I moved to LA and I met Dave, I was never like I said, I got kicked out of musical theater because they said I was better at just being a dramatic actress.
Mhm.
Um, and in musical theater, you have to be a little more exuberant, as you would say, like more outgoing, louder. So when I started singing, I quickly realized that I really had to take risks, and I think I like for example, I was always into music, so I was very good with melody, like from playing piano, and obviously I could tell if I'm off key or not. So I quickly realized that first of all, confidence is probably number one thing in singing because you really have to go for it, especially like when you're hitting higher notes. Because if you hold back, your voice is not gonna take it because you need that support, and a lot of that support comes from confidence. So when we started writing songs and I was hearing these melodies in my head, and I'm like, well, it's like I needed my voice to do something that I've never done before. So it took a lot of trial and error, but it
Mm,
took a lot of like that fearless attitude that, I'm gonna get my voice to do it no matter what. And yeah, maybe, I sounded bad. Like right now, I really don't really want to listen to myself on the first or second album, but it was part of the evolution. It really took me years to develop my voice and the range, um, because some people assume that you're just born with a range, but it's like a muscle. You have to train it, you have to develop, you have to push yourself. So um, yeah, I think it was a long journey for sure.
that's okay. The journey is always long for all of us. So what there's so many aspiring musicians out there. It's not common for people to be super extroverted and super out there. What advice would you have for other aspiring musicians, artists, female singers, like to get to that place of confidence? What are some of the tricks?
Yeah, well, I think number one thing is, or at least for me, is love what you're doing that you lose track of time. Like I when I went into this band, I just really fell in love with what I was doing, and I always wanted to practice, and I wanted to just keep writing and keep creating. And a lot of that drive really fuels your confidence in a way, because it's like a backbone. And another thing, what helped me is to eventually get over the fear of judgment from other people, because at the end of the day, it's up to, it's your life, and you have to be happy with what you're creating. And what I found is that if you're really proud of what you're doing, and if it's really authentic and you're honest about what you're doing, and you're putting a lot of love into it, other people are gonna jump on board and it's gonna resonate. You're gonna find your audience. And even though, there's gonna be a lot of bumps in the road, it's okay because it's gonna make you stronger. Like now looking back, all the failures
Mhm.
is what really made us grow in those moments. And it sounds cliche, but like we are a band made out of failures, and we always come out on the other side. And I think that's what makes us grow and made us stronger.
Absolutely. I agree. I think it's important to fail hard, fail fast. I mean, fail as many times as you can because the more you fail, the more you know what doesn't work. And then eventually you find better and better things. Trial and error. That is life. There's no
Mhm.
perfection. You were in New York for a little while for university, the Tisch School of the Arts, and I believe you studied some Meisner. Did like the acting help with the confidence and whatnot?
Mhm. Um, yeah, well, yes. So I kind of have like these two personalities. When I'm on stage, I don't have like I'm not shy. I think that confidence thing comes from um like really understanding like what can I do and what I can't do. Like
Mm,
for example, during auditions, that's where I would maybe hinder myself, because like in that moment I would get nervous and maybe I wouldn't perform as well as I could have. So I think that part of um confidence really comes with time. And like teachers are right when they say, you have to keep doing it, you have to keep going to auditions. I think just like with anything, experience really helps. So I'm still pretty shy in real life. Like I keep to myself a little bit, but when you're on stage, it's a different thing. That's really where I express myself. I express myself through the music. It's like a different side of me, really. Um, but yeah, studying Meisner really opened myself up to kind of new techniques that help me with singing. Part of it, and not necessarily Meisner, but we had this class and it was all about breathing. And, at that time, like I really was like, okay, I have to do this. because, I didn't foresee myself being a singer in the future. So I just did it because, when you're on theater, it's about importance to project. So you had to develop that strength. But we did so many breathing exercises that we were like professional athletes at that point. So it made me quickly realize when I started singing how important it is to have that support,
Mhm.
have that ability to control your breath, um, so that really helps me with singing down the
That's
line.
I always find it fascinating when you see people that have, like you said, 2 personalities where excuse me, where they say they're shy and they maybe are timid or introverted and keep to themselves, but then they have, tens of thousands of fans and they've traveled the world and then they get on stage and it's like, "Oh, unleashed." What's the switch? Like, how do you go from one to the other? What is it on stage or in your music that gives you that push?
Yeah, it's just teleporting to the world that I'm creating in my head. That's my excuse, you know? I switch out of reality and I go somewhere else. And it's a very cathartic feeling because I always remembered like growing up, I always wanted to escape into some larger than life thing. I think that's why I gravitated towards theater and towards film because I always wanted to experience, being in other worlds and scenarios. And I'm very fascinated with, psychology because I want to get into people's minds and really experience something through some other lens than just my own. So I think on stage is where I really get to live out what I'm creating, with the music or with whatever I'm doing, with Edge of Paradise. And it's part of the reason why, like I've always wanted to write my own songs is because it's easier for me to tap into that world because it's really coming from the heart. When you're singing somebody else's songs, it's a little bit harder because you have to, think about interpret it, and, it's like a bigger leap,
Yeah,
from own music I like. It comes from deeper or from the universe, wherever it comes from, right? It's
yeah.
easier for me to just, um, go into that world and, share it with the audience live.
You said something fascinating just now. So you mentioned psychology, you mentioned connecting with people. I'm gonna pull this string a little bit. So you said that you just go into a different world. You just teleport into a different mindset. Isn't it crazy how at the end of the day, it really is just our minds? If you're able to just say to yourself, cool, now I'm on stage and now I'm a different person.
Mhm.
Uh, Imagine we could tap into that more often in everyday life and say things to ourselves like, "Yeah, you know what? I am gonna wake up at 6 o'clock every day and go to the gym every morning, and it's never gonna stop ever again." The power that our minds have is wild.
Oh, yes. That is so true. And I've, throughout the years, I've had a lot of songs kind of about that. Even the last one, recent one we released, The Other Side of Fear, because fear is one of the most hindering things in life.
Mm,
Um, and then what's worse is regretting something you didn't try down the line, So that's my biggest fear. I don't want to look back and be like, oh, I regret not being maybe brave enough to try that or explore that because, you get one life and it's kind of like a playground in a way. I mean, within reason, but you really have to take risks and take chances and be fearless. Um, and I remember myself when I was younger, when I was little, I was way more fearless. As you get older, I feel like even like from the news and from everything bombarding your mind every day, I think it's done on purpose.
yeah,
Some conspiracy theories, I mean, we can talk all day, right? But I think it's on purpose to really hinder your mind and just make people fearful because it makes you fall in line, right? It makes it easier to control, just, have this life because because it would be harder if everybody just becomes fearless and wants to
yeah,
like try all these things and live boldly, right? Um
yeah.
question things, question everything. And not for the sake of, being a rebel. It's not necessarily that, but I feel like it's important to have your own mind and really ask questions, because if you just believe everything you hear, this is someone, just even science tells you don't believe your own eyes, because like if you explore like quantum physics, for example, nothing makes sense. So I just think it's important to have that curious mind and always have that childlike wonder. Like I remember always, like when I was a kid, like seeing something and just being like, wow, it's so cool. And sometimes you see kids and, they look at something with their eyes, with wonder in their eyes, and it gets lost when we get older. So I think it's important to try to hold on to that. Uh,
It's funny that you mentioned wonder because I was fed a clip yesterday. This guy was talking about wonder, and he said, like, we've lost wonder because of the phones. You're at like an event, a party, someone hears a song. "Oh, I wonder what this is," and everyone immediately pulls out a phone and is trying to figure out what the song is, or Googling something, Googling the facts. So he now is doing this thing where he says, no, nobody's allowed to pull out the phone. Let's sit in the wonder. Let's sit
mm,
there together and what could this be? Who could this be? Let's use our minds. Let's feel that childhood wonder. I agree with you. I also agree about the fear. I think that in life there's love and there's everything else. Fear is the absence of love. Uh, you have to kind of always go back to love. That is the root of everything. And you made me think of a metal band, Zao or Zao, Z-A-O, however people pronounce it. So they have an album called The Fear. I think it's The Fear is What Keeps You Here, or The Fear Keeps You Here. And I remember seeing that cover and listening to that album, and I interpreted it as, if you are living in fear, you're stuck here. You're not gonna
mm.
go anywhere. You have to break out of that fear in order to progress. What do you think?
Yeah, totally agree. And it's so true. And just from personal experience, I think the sooner you realize that in life, the further you'll get, or the further you'll, you know, get spiritual, wherever you want to go. It's definitely good good thing to keep in mind. But it comes with experience. Uh, I think there is a journey there that's also worth going through to get to that point
Mhm.
of realizing that, it's my life and I'm going to live it fearlessly. Yeah, I think everything in a way happens for a reason. And then going back to love and fear, like that's another thing that was when I was at the Meisner, studio at NYU. I remember us having a lot of conversations, because when you study acting, you study psychology a lot, because, to really get into that character, you really have to understand of where emotions come from. So it was taught to us that, everything comes down to love and fear. So whatever the character is doing, it's always either out of love or out of fear. Because some people might think, oh, it's out of hate or it's out of, frustration, but all those feelings, they are rooted in either love or fear. And then kind of looking back, it makes a lot of sense. Just personal experiences in life really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. It's funny, I agree with you. I think it's as simple as you have to fail in order to
Mhm,
move ahead, and then each time you fail, that fear diminishes.
mhm,
It gets less scary when you fail. I
mhm,
mean, look at you. 2014, like I said, you emailed me. You probably were feeling a certain amount of fear when you're a young artist and you have your music and you're reaching out to these publications to try to get covered. You're doing it by yourself. You're probably going to get a lot of rejection or a lot of like dead air. But then you get someone that responds and says, "Yeah, thanks for emailing me. This music's great. How can we help?" And then that will instill a little bit of that love and remove some of that fear. And then you just kind of naturally keep going from there.
mhm, yep,
So 2014, you reached out. What I found fascinating was there's, so many bands that I've talked to for long periods of time, and you guys seem like you've been independent for so long, but then you see these beautiful wins come through, where all of a sudden there's a press release, like now with Frontiers Records, or now with is it Napalm with the newest one. How does it feel for you being independent for so long, but then getting some label backing?
Well, in the moment, it feels different than down the line. I'm very happy we're on Napalm now. Um, so yeah,
You want to
there's
be politically correct.
there's a lot to unravel here. I have no fear. I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna say everything, but one of the things, I mean, music business, I think everybody knows that it's not the prettiest business, and it's not the kindest, and it's not, no one's going to cradle you. There's a lot of people that are maybe not even in the music business for the right reasons. And
Hmm.
I feel like it's already hard enough being an artist, and then it's even harder to dealing with the business end of it. What I can tell you is that maybe I focus on creating like 10% of the time. I'd like to get to the 100, but it's just, it's better lately. But in the moment when you are, getting offered record deal, or, start working with the management, or, agent, and then you, other people come into your life and they see value, and they want to benefit from the value, which is very cool. Like, I think it's awesome that I want to get, I've always wanted to be at a level where other people see value, where they can be like, they can make money from it, or whatever it may be, right? So I like that side of the thing. But in the moment you're getting signed, getting offered this deal, and you don't really think ahead. Like, you don't think 10 years down the line. You don't think about all the all the little things that can be interpreted in the contract. You don't think about uh, things like publishing, things like licensing. Like, you're not knowledgeable. And I think that should be taught in music schools or whatever. Like, I didn't really go to school, music business. Um, but I think any artist should have that knowledge. So if you're starting out, it's really get that knowledge, because it's really up to you to be the master of your destiny, as I would say. Because contracts start rolling in, and then you're all happy, and then you sign them, and then down the line you're like, oh, and then you have to pay for it, really. So Frontiers, what I can say is that I'm grateful for any experience we've had, hard or easy. Um, there are some things I can tell you that made the band maybe, I don't know, go backwards, business side of things. Um, with our hologram release, we were, we almost quit, due to those things, the business end of things, because we're still kind of, fighting a little bit on that. But we got, and that's another thing. Um, don't let failures drown you, because there's also going to be people that going to want to pull you down. So always get up and move forward, because thank God we didn't quit. So now we're at a much better position, and we wrote prophecy out of it, because everything fuels you. Everything is going to go into your music. Even like The Unknown, one of our most defining albums for us, came out of the pandemic, when everything shut down, and there was no hope in sight. We wrote that album, and it really changed a lot of things for us. So I can say is be very smart, and just keep going. But yeah, I mean, it feels good to be with a label, to have management and have people around you. But number one thing is to find the good people around you.
Yeah.
You really have to be smart by surrounding yourself with the right people, and still be the one in charge of steering the ship,
I appreciate your, honesty. So,
Mhm.
it's funny because you 'cause you're living and doing all the things that you're talking about, right? Like, the fear of failure, just embracing it and doing it and keeping going afterwards. That hasn't stopped you or deterred you. Bravo for that. What do you think the balance is? How does one, I mean, I have my own opinion, but how, in your opinion, how does one, especially as a young artist, um, let people into the inner circle? Because you want that help, you want that management, you want that team, but also make sure that they're not gonna take advantage of you. What do you think the answer is?
That's a difficult question. Um, well, I think, I mean, if this is kind of advice for younger bands, um, first of all, you have to realize the point where when you need those people. Because I think for us, sometimes we did things a bit haste, I would say. Like even I mean, it's um kind of good and bad because even the way we put out the very first album, like when I met Dave, I didn't even write the songs. I sang because he had a band with Robin McCauley. So there was a lot of unreleased music and some released music, and I just, sang on the songs. And he had a 67 Chevelle. He sold that car. I remember we went out of a bank with like 20 grand in cash. We were like, okay, 10 grand's going to the album, 10 grand's going to the publicist. And we just kind of like, went all out. But I don't think we were ready for that. And then
Mm,
people came in because, you know, people want to get paid. So it's easier to find people when when you have some financial offering. Um, but I think it's important to realize when you are ready and when you have the right product, because then people are going to come for different reasons, and that those people are going to be the one that see the long term, and they're going to be there to grow that product with you so everybody can benefit from the long term goal, so I think it's important to recognize those people that are there for the long term, or they're just there for that quick thing that they can benefit from. So you build your team around the product that you're very proud of, that you see value in, that you are ready to go the long term game, and surround yourself with the people that are on the same page and that are there for the right reasons. And I think you can recognize, those people because it's a different conversation.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that you can very easily identify authenticity, honesty, integrity. Um, it sounds like one of the best things that artists can do is give themselves information, right? Like
Okay.
educate themselves, like you said, on the industry so that you're less likely to maybe make some of those mistakes
Hmm.
and avoid maybe some of those bad decisions or bad actors, but still not shut yourself off to opportunity.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a fine line, it's a balance. And another thing, there's no real blueprint. Nobody can tell you this is how you do it exactly. I think you just really have to educate yourself, really know the business, and then give yourself that space to make mistakes as well, but make those mistakes knowledgeable, because there's a mistake that you can recover from by having knowledge, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll just try something else. But if you don't even know that you made a mistake, that's when you're in trouble. And
Yeah.
then a higher cost.
Having a team is really important. I'm a big believer that, all artists need to have a team and everyone has different strengths. Some bands have people that are great at videography, and so you don't have to worry about outsourcing for video because someone in the band can do it. At some point, though, you need to go external because you have to focus on creating your music. Dare I ask you, independent or label route? Which one is more appealing?
What do you mean, just, like, making stuff or
Just in general, as an artist, from your experiences so far, do you prefer to go the independent route and work with the team that you choose, or do you prefer to have, like, a label and backing?
No, I definitely prefer label and backing for sure. Um, I just think you have to be with the right label and backing. Independent route, I mean, if you're Metallica, you can do it, you know? At that point, you really just, pick your own team. You can make your own label. But still, when you're growing a business, I think it's important to have that right partnership because it's that catch 22. Sometimes, I mean, unless you have $1 million, then it's different. And I'm not even saying because the label can give you that $1 million. It's not necessarily because of that. Like, we're not really working with a label because of the financial partnership. Like, we put our own finances into it more than any of our partners, but it's still that support, the representation, the connection, it's still important. And it also kind of maybe puts the right amount of pressure on you because you are responsible, for a lot of, I don't want to say responsible for the other people, but you are, the one that, for example, has to meet the deadlines, and it does kind of drive you. I mean, for me, I don't really need that. I'm like kind of crazy in that way. I keep doing stuff, but maybe some people need that,
Yeah.
to keep that drive. So I would still rather be with a label, just the right label.
Yeah, that makes sense, like, the right fit, the right people behind the project, I totally agree. You said something interesting there, though, that I think, I haven't really thought of before, but it's so vital to artists. Um, you said that even though you're signed to a label, that doesn't mean that you get to rest on your laurels. Even though you're on a label, there's still times where you have to pay for things out of your own pocket, manage your schedule, organize yourself. Just because you're signed doesn't mean you get to sit on the beach and just play guitar.
Oh yeah, I think that's when you really have to start working because you can become unsigned very fast too. And then owe a bunch of money in return as well because, label, it's kind of like a bank. They give you a loan. Um, so you really have to, it's more stress in a way where you have to show that, there is a future, there's a profitable future because we are in a business,
Mhm.
and I think it's important. And, some artists, and I get it. Like, if I didn't have to deal with business or money, like, I would love that. But I think it's just a harsh reality that, 99% of the artists have to accept is that we are in the music business,
Right.
and we have to accept that we have to make decisions. We have to make hard decisions within the band. Like, I've had to make a lot of hard decisions, maybe even, I don't want to say make enemies, but there's going to be decisions that not everybody is going to agree with, but it's better for the long term of the band. And unfortunately, like, I'm, the one in the position that has to make those decisions, but it's just something that comes with, having your own band. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, have to have that mindset.
Keep going. It never gets easier. It only gets, more
Mhm.
challenging, and we get
Oh, yeah.
stronger as we go. Um, I was really interested in, your story where, obviously your background and your cultural influence and having lived in different areas is a factor, but the way you write, and I'm quoting, this bio, the intersection between humanity and technology, delving into ideas of identity, consciousness, emotional evolution in a digital age. Talk to me about, like, what excites you and where this writing comes from. Are you spiritual? Are you philosophical? All of the above.
I am spiritual. I think always was, like, religion was never forced upon me. Um, but, we went to church sometimes, but no one, like, told me this is what you have to believe in. But I always kind of knew that there was something beyond this reality. Even when I was really little, I don't know, I just have this feeling that there's more than the eyes can see. And I always kind of chase that. So I think in the music, that's why I kind of create these larger than life scenarios, because I really tap into that feeling that, there's more. We just don't know what it is. And there's a beauty in the unknown. And, that's one of our albums is something, exploring the unknown. And we can either fear it or we can go into it with wonder. So, yeah.
Were like, every time you were in touch with me through the website, even in your emails, you came across as very kind, very courteous, very appreciative, and, talking to you now, there's a huge smile. Are you a naturally happy person?
So that's a big word. And I approach words with like they hold a lot of meaning. I
Mhm.
don't think I am a happy person. I experience a lot of happiness, and then I really love the connection with people. I love to how music brings us together. Like it brings me so much joy. But I think as a person, like I really recognize that life can be very cruel. Sometimes, like, I look at someone just walking down the street, and if I sense something, I feel very sad for them, or I don't know, like, I feel a lot of sadness. But I think part of me smiling maybe a lot is because whatever emotion I'm in, I really feel it to the max. So, but I'm not crazy. Like, if someone says they're not crazy, they are. No, but I'm very level-headed, but I'm very self-aware. So I experience very deeply. If I'm sad, I like very sad, but I always have that awareness that there is cruelty, there's sadness, there is a lot of suffering in the world, and I always feel it. But in the moment when I am connecting with someone or doing something I love, it does bring me a lot of joy. And I don't know, I also feel like this purpose that I have to like add some light to the world because there's a lot of darkness. So I think maybe that part of what shaped my personality. But I was always this way. But it doesn't mean that I'm just a happy person. I really aware of all the not so happy moments.
Yeah. Well, you're choosing love. You're choosing lightness, right, in your
Hmm.
life and your decisions. With your writing, these concepts of consciousness and emotional evolution in the digital age, which I'm a big proponent. Like I love that we're able to grow spiritually and emotionally with all the technology that's coming in. Where do you get your inspiration? Are you reading? Are you into the philosophers? What's your stimulus?
Uh, I do. I always my brain is like a sponge. It always needs to find new information. So I am a very curious person, and uh, also my father's a scientist, so I grew up around those conversations, and I've always kept up on the new research or whatever the scientists are discovering, and then questioning it because it's interesting now that I'm 35, so I've had years of watching the world. And a lot of things that were thought at some point are now disproven by some things. There's a lot of new discovery. So it just proves my point that, you always have to have an open mind about things because having an open mind is a doorway to the future that you're just not seeing yet. So I've always s- um, was, curious to find those, new information, but also, movies. I love watching movies, kind of movies like Interstellar or The Fountain. Those are some of my favorite ones that really makes you think about things, and then it makes me think further and kind of um, create new paths for me to explore. So there's a lot of inspiration that I draw from, and also personal experiences living life and living in so many different places in the world and meeting a lot of people and just I think when you're 'Cause when we moved, I was 11 and experiencing those emotions, kind of having a completely different life and missing the people that you grew up with and just understanding that, you know, uh, like what distance can create and understanding relationships. I don't know, it made me grow up a little bit faster, I think. Um, and just kind of watching my parents and like now looking back, I realized that, my dad, he pretty much took the whole family, moved it to different countries within, a span of 10 years. Um, just recognizing the difficulties of life and um, watching my dad, he was, I guess, very fearless in a way, doing that, having a little kid. And then when we moved to the States, my sister was born. So, um, yeah, it was a lot of crazy changes within my family, but I think it just made me more fearless in pursuing things. Um, and it adds to my writing because I can tap into different
Mm.
emotions and experiences.
It sounds like you have a really cool balance of, having been immersed in all kinds of different arts, classically trained from a very young age, but then grew up around a family, a father that was a scientific mind. So it's like a very clear divide between art and logic, or love and logic, and question reality and question everything, but at the same time just embrace the love and create the create how you feel.
I do like to play with my dad by being like, "Well, what if the earth is flat?" He go That's funny.
So you guys have some tour dates coming up. You have a new album out now. Obviously, you're going to be promoting that for a while. Do you always create, like, from a business perspective? That's the cycle, that's the album. But are you always creating new music, paintings, graphic novels, or is it done in batches?
Yeah, I always like to just for myself, I feel more fulfilled when I am constantly creating. I mean, obviously, when, like, we have a tour coming up, I'm not gonna just, sit and write off a new song, but I try to make new artwork or whatever I can because it fuels me. But I think it's important to understand when you need to focus on something. Don't do it all at once. Like I have to kind of tell myself, now I have to focus on getting ready for the tour to make
Right.
sure everything goes logistically good. So you have to kind of recognize those moments when you have to shift focus a little bit. But I always like to keep creating.
Good for you. What's one of the things do you think that you attribute to the band's continued growth? You've had, like, some label issues, but then good label experiences. You've been independent. You've had gone through so many different albums. You're still here. Yeah. How is it possible that you're still here?
Well, what else would I be doing? I mean, I don't have a plan B, it's a mindset. You there's no what other thing. I can't just the other thing you can do is give up and I don't want to give up. So,
Good for you.
yeah.
I really appreciate the conversation. It's so nice to put the face to the emails and to get to know you a little bit more. Uh, Over to you for the last word.
Well, I want to thank you for supporting us from pretty much the beginning. People like you is really what makes us, fuels us, and encourages us and inspires artists like us. So I really want to thank you and thank the listeners. And just very grateful that we have music in the world because it crosses all borders and brings people together. It's really a universal language. So thank you for being here and being a part of all of it.